what it is like growing up with parents who probably should have never had kids. My parents couldn't have kids, so they adopted me was 8 months old. But my mom was so ashamed she couldn't have a kid of her own, so she started drinking a lot and would mentally, physically, and emotionally abuse me. She would tell me all the time about how she saved me, or how I would be dead if it wasn't for her. Was horrible. My dad is my hero, but he traveled a lot for work so wasn't around to see it happen. Once he found out, he immediately stopped traveling, kicked her out of the house, and paid for multiple stays at rehab over the course of a year before giving up and divorcing her. I was 10. He gave her his entire retirement savings to gain custody of me. So, technically I grew up with one parent who should never had kids, and one who was extremely overqualified. Thanks for the silver, my first award. That is both terrible and sweet at the same time. So happy to hear your dad did the right thing. It's so sad to hear good people that tolerate or enable such behavior. Totally agree. Not fair to bring in a kid in need only to reject them for not being enough. Happy ending though. Dad remarried my stepmom, who is wonderful, and I now have a 7-year-old brother. My mom has trouble sticking to one place or person, so I have 2 little brothers and we all have different dads. My dad is a terrible businessman. He has tried multiple times to open a store or business in my name, which would have meant that I would to pay any debt that the store business makes. So far every business he has ever started failed. My grandma had an ouch of my parents' bullshit and decided that she should raise me. The officers agreed, and I had to move to my grandma. I barely ever see my parents now. They don't really care about me, but I don't care about them either, so it's fine. My dad is a terrible businessman. He has tried multiple times to open a store or business in my name, which would have meant that I would to pay any debt that the store business makes. That can't be legal, can it? Not legal, but sadly it happens all the time. Sometimes the dads think it's okay because they're doing it for the good of the family. I know more people who turned 21 and found massive unpaid debt on their record when they went to take out an auto loan or mortgage. My mom was 17 when she got pregnant, dropped out of HS and started working. My parents got married when I was like 6mo, divorced around 4 to 5. Around 10 my dad moved across the country and my mom remarried. She was so not ready to have a kid, neither was my dad. But she always made sure that I knew how much she loved me, that I didn't ruin her life, but actually saved it. She never called me an accident, even though I obviously was. She is the only person on this earth that I know without a doubt will always be there for me no matter what, and will always love me. And I know my dad loves me. We have a good relationship, and as I've grown I've realized that his life is better away from this state. He's done what he can, and has always made sure to be available to me despite the distance. I have noticed that the absence of siblings makes me pick one friend and just cling to them, and basically make them my sibling. They're more than a best friend. I've always wanted a little sister. I just grew up being extremely afraid of making people upset or angry. At least, people close to me. Every single time my mom got upset, she would use lash out and hurt me. Tossing Coke cans her favorite drink lol, bashing my head with remote controls and books, etc. I remember this one time it was nearing my exams, and I was sick and tired of studying. I asked her multiple times if I could go downstairs to play basketball with a couple of friends around the neighborhood. To which she just said I was using basketball as a crutch to escape studying, and she demanded me to study straight after dinner. Dinner time came. Dining table had 2 dishes already, and as she brought out a bowl of soup, I asked one more time and she placed the bowl down and smashed the glass table. Basically, the table wasn't tempered glass and all the plates and bowls came crashing down 12 stitches in between my big and second toe. I was raised by my mom and my stepfather, and also my real father. I lived with my stepfather from the time I was 2 until I graduated from high school, and saw my real father on a regular, whenever needed basis, but never lived with him. Both my fathers are very good men, and so am I. I rarely see either of them anymore, because neither one of them actually ever wanted to be a father when they got me. It was just circumstance. They both worked hard and did what they were supposed to do. for the most part, but they did it for others and not for me, and were way too willing to let the other be dad when it was convenient for what they wanted. When I was young I believed that I was fortunate because I had two dads, but now I know that when it comes to a father, two halves do not make a whole. And that's why I'm a good man, but not a whole man. First world problems, I guess, but problems nonetheless. One parent, my father. He literally only put food on the table and drove us to and from school. No connection, no love, no kiss, no hugs, not even a comforting word. Never even ate with us in the kitchen. Never took us out. Never taught us anything. Never advised or counseled us. Never respected my mom. Lied always and manipulated us at very young ages. We would spend 3 months of summer literally never leaving home because he wouldn't take us anywhere. Never welcomed our friends. The one thing he cared about is going out to drink alcohol. He wasn't an addict because he could stop sometimes for a month or so, but he self-medicated. Now I think he might have had high-functioning depression, and it terrifies me because I can feel myself having that kind of apathy about life in general. That's why I'm never ever having children or trusting any man whatsoever. My parents ignored us, ignored the house, basically ignored life. One drank, the other one was a mental case, going in and out of an insane asylum, chain smoked, doctor and pharmacy visits every week. They never showed any affection or attended any of our school events. Nobody cooked or cleaned the house. We literally had the worst house in the neighborhood. I never let any friends in the house. So, I grew up being extremely shy. Dropped out of school at 16, became pregnant at 16. I've been married x3 and divorced x3. I never knew that when you became married that the guy should have been my best friend, someone to confide with. I didn't know that a marriage could be about loving, confiding and even having fun. I never told them or anyone about my childhood. My mother had me before completing her degree, had a horrible short marriage because me, then married a man in her situation so they could both keep their kids. Growing up as their child was isolating and lonely. They did not let their kids get in the way of their success. So much of my life being guilted and manipulated, I can't act without worrying how I will be judged. I've been moved out for years, but I find myself still cleaning up after them financially and literally. If I don't help them, or I cross them, it seems like they unconsciously take it out on my sisters, who still live with them. The messed up part is hearing her earnestly say you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like we never fought, because they prioritized me as free child care over my education, and criticized any opinion I had outside of this. I felt so unloved at home, that I would try to get good grades at school, so teachers would praise me. And one time in 6th grade, my English teacher went out of her way to visit me at my locker after school to say, "Imksriskri, I read your essay and I think you are an amazing writer. Thank you for participating in my class." And when I came home, my parents were already mad at me and dragged me to my room by my hair because they didn't want to see my face and locked the door. Then I thought about what my teacher said to me and I cried because I've never felt so appreciated than in that moment when my teacher said that. Or you're like Matilda and she's your Miss Honey. Oh hon, I'm so sorry. No child should grow up like that. I hope you're doing well now and kept writing. Mom yelled at me for having any needs as a child. So annoying when a 4-year-old needs a snack on an 8-hour outing, right? So even today, if I'm riding in someone's car and it's too hot which makes me car sick, I cannot ask them to turn up the air. Physically can't. I puked in my friend's car in middle school for this reason and TBH it could happen again today. I've been in therapy for years but I just can't. My husband will never admit if he's hungry because he was always mocked for saying he was hungry or thirsty as a child. They would somehow get into Disney World for free and stay from open to close and she wouldn't get him a drink because that would actually cost money. The way she tells it, she was mom of the year for taking him to a theme park. Mom is a pathological liar and selfish narcissist. Dad is a sociopath narcissist. Lived with my mom mostly, saw my dad on weekends, but hung out with grandma most of the time I was there. He lived with her. Was always told to not cry, don't show emotions, mostly because it made them uncomfortable. They would hug us occasionally, but it felt forced. They weren't comforting at all if I was scared or sad. I would hide my emotions a lot. This would later cause issues in my other relationships in life, but I'm working on it. I have a hard time maintaining relationships with them. My mom and I are at a good place now, but I don't talk to my dad at all. I have trust issues. I have mental health issues in general. Being insecure about everything and questioning everyone's tiniest reactions. Such as, if someone is a little quieter than usual, or if someone may be getting annoyed. I always walk on eggshells, even though I don't have to anymore. It's just a learned behavior by this point. PTSD is a mess. Loud noises, especially door slamming, ducks with my head. My stepdad slammed doors a lot. It's how I knew to stay upstairs the rest of the day. Anything I did could set them off. If I tried to defend myself, they'd gaslight me and say I was the one in the wrong. I'm out on my own now, but some of the past still follows me, but I have amazing friends. You have very small trust in other people, especially while talking about your personal life. This is me, but more because of school than parents. Ignore them and they'll go away. Well, you must have done something to deserve it. There's always a reason why with you, isn't there? People always say you miss school after you leave and get a job. Over a decade and counting, and I'd still rather go to prison than back to school. There's always a reason why, isn't there? Yes. Or is it too inconvenient that I'm not the problem? I just constantly lie about mine. If you pretend there's no sob story, then you won't have to tell it to begin with. I grew attached to any adult who showed me positive attention, so basically was obsessed with all my teachers. Whoa, I didn't even realize I still do this, and I'm in my 40s. I get attached to anyone older than me who gives me positive attention or shows they care. I didn't have an older sibling, and I've found I try and form a close bond with every older or more experienced person I meet. I guess I have great advice givers, but that's not the best surrogate for a timid person. Validation from anyone I hold in medium to high esteem. Validation from my professors gives me a high for like 2 weeks.